I've been at church planting for a little over probably 10 years now, and it's in the early stages. There was nobody back then, and now there's a whole network of people who have the same passion to plant churches and see God's kingdom built.
I've been really excited about being here because since I was a sophomore in college, I'd been praying for God to raise up South Asian people that have a heart to do ministry. And so it's fantastic to be able to be here in this room with a lot of people who are like-minded and just see how God's answered that prayer.
When I heard that there were other brown people that are Christians and that they do full-time ministry, that really piqued my interest.
My husband, who was part of the advanced cohort last year and has participated in the conference since it started. And we also just got married. And so I just married into the Indian community, and church planting is something we're thinking about, or at least praying through and interested in.
So I was really curious to see how many people could possibly be in that room. And there was quite a few.
I've been really blessed. I've been really blessed by this conference. Like I said, I didn't really know what to expect. I learned much more than I could have imagined.
I think oftentimes as a white guy, I look at people from India and I assume that they're all the same, but there's over 2,000 people groups, and there's northern and there's southern, and I didn't even know what a Keralite was until I came here, and I had to ask in one of the seminars. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't even know what a Keralite is. And so to realize that you have Hindus and you have Muslims and you have people who are culturally Christian and have been Christian since 52 AD, and those layers really were revealed to me over the course of the last few days.
There are so many stories of people, especially in the Southeast Asian community, throughout the U.S. that are like-minded and doing amazing things in different states and cities, and planting churches and having just so many amazing stories. And there's a lot of times when you think you're doing something on your own and like, oh, this is only a story that I'm going through. But then when you get to hear there are people just like you, and like even not in leadership, not in pastoral positions necessarily, but they're just involved and God's just using them in their communities.
Something I've learned at this conference was about some of the cultural boundaries that there are for Southeast Asians, and how following Jesus means so much more and costs so much more, sometimes even just leaving their church or church planning, doing ministry, what it looks like, and how the costs can be even on Christians, even with Christian families. I had no idea about that before.
My mind is absolutely blown out of my skull with the looking around the room at so many people whose experiences are like mine, and that sense of alienation that I've always felt my whole life. Growing up in a rural context as an Indian person, the only brown person for miles, it's to walk around and talk to people about their having feet in both worlds, this culture with their Indian heritage and their feet in American culture, and the sense of alienation that can only be remedied in the love of God. Those similarities were really just absolutely mind-blowing. And the you too kind of experience was something I could have never anticipated.
There's a commonality in our brokenness. That's something that I definitely saw being stressed here. Differences of our cultures don't really matter. We can strip those away or don't strip them, but we still have brokenness which is common and which all of us understand.
This was just an awesome reminder of, as we pursue multi-ethnic churches, as we try to engage with Indians for the sake of the gospel, that foundation of why we do the things we do is the life, death, and resurrection of Christ.
I think within the Indian community, it can be sometimes discouraging to see, like, is there fruit, is God at work? But, I think when you're here, you see that, wow, God is at work. And I think it strengthens us to put our hand to the plow and not look back, and to keep going in what God has for us.
We just discovered that there's this huge immigrant population surrounding us that no one is reaching out to, and that the gospel is such an important, it's the most important gift I've ever been given. The good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that if I'm going to be an ambassador of that gospel, I have to be an ambassador to all people, not just the people that look like me or think like me or grew up like me.
The complexity of being Indian American is not just one thing. I got to speak with people from southern India, raised in a Christian context and struggling with generational difficulties and trying to get the gospel to come to bear on their own setting. I only knew what it meant to be an Indian Christian by parents who were Hindu and did not believe. So learning that my experience in coming to Christ and seeing how the gospel bears on my own ethnicity and heritage, and how different that is from someone who was raised in a Christian environment.
I used to think that church planting was very scary, and I think it is. It's still scary, but seeing and hearing from people who have done it before, it makes me realize like there are people who also think about this. It's not just in like silos around the country, but people from all over the country think about these things. They're doing these things. They have done these things, and God has been faithful, and that's encouraging to see.
There's such a great community forming here, and it's really important for those that even have any idea or any thought about wanting to be a part of something new, that it's important that you understand that you're not in a silo, that there are people here, there are friends here, there's a network here, there's mentors, there's a strong desire here to be part of something together.
I had some sort of restlessness and some sort of hunger to learn about the church planting movement, primarily among Indian Americans. And so if you're kind of restless, if you're kind of unsure about life and feel the Holy Spirit kind of tugging your heart a bit, I'd say, why not? Come and see.
I made friends here, and I would love to come back and see them again.
A common faith in the gospel needs to be worked out wisely in our diverse cities. It's not something someone can figure out on their own. You need conversation partners, and there are quite a few very, very godly and good ones in this setting.